Welcome back. Let's now zoom on one very common and important type of business model, that's the platform concept. So what is it? The platform concept, traditional thinking and the way you first learn about a business is what we call a traditional one-way pipeline business model. You produce, you distribute, you do your marketing to your consumer. So it's very linear and it's one-sided. It's really from the producer to the customer. It's upstream production and downstream consumption. And the content and the value is added incrementally. Platform is really different. A platform is a business model based on enabling value creating transaction between producer and consumer. A platform really provides an open, participative infrastructure for those interactions and sets governance conditions for them. Really, if you need to keep something in mind, is that the overarching purpose of the platform is to consummate, to create matches among users and facilitate the exchange of goods, services, or social currency for all participants. So it's really blurring the lines between production and consumption and putting them all together. And obviously, traditional thinking, you will find back very traditional companies that still exist, and it's still a model that's obviously very important. But on the right side, on the platform side, you'll find mostly new digital ventures, not only, but mostly. And digital is indeed key here. And that's also why I started my introduction with the technology disruption. So you have two types of platforms: innovation platforms, transaction platforms. I will not expand that too much because actually a lot are quite hybrid in the middle. So it's more for information that I've added this slide. And here I have some literature just to show you that the main B2C platforms today, they've already outvalued traditional businesses. And obviously that's now a bit outdated. It's already 3 years ago, and we've had a massive correction on the financial markets following the current crisis. But still, I'm pretty sure that the order of magnitude is still the same, and maybe the difference is even bigger because you've probably read that Amazon has reached its highest valuation and is actually benefiting from the crisis. And again, I'm not entering into ethical discussion here about the business model itself and the way the company treats its employee. That's obviously something worth discussing, and but that's not the point here. Just to tell you that those companies today are the one successful. Many of them were valued a lot, were not yet profitable, but obviously it's not the case today. So you have a lot of figures here, and you see that you have them in a lot of different verticals. So Amazon, again, they are not only in retail, they are already in media with Amazon Prime and music. They are in energy. They do almost everything, right? Facebook, they have WhatsApp in telco. They're also doing retail. They're trying to have finance as well. So all those companies, they are really disrupting and attacking traditional companies in a lot of different industries. And so again, an illustration, if you see the increasing number of successful digital startups globally that are threatening the existence of large corporates. So it's always quite impressive to see that. And obviously, in China, in the US, the champions, they've emerged. The GAFA, obviously, I know I forgot the acronym for the one in China, but the Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and there is a fourth one that I forgot now. In Europe, it's less clear, and obviously we will need as well to have our champions to not be fully dependent from technology coming from abroad. But if we conceptualize a bit, in the last century, you had giant monopolies who were created based on supply economies of sales. What was important was the supply side, have the scale, produce massively to drive your cost down. And the drivers were really production efficiency to reduce the unit cost of creating a product or service. Today, you have also monopolies that are being created, and it's also with the same issues, but this time it's more demand economies of scales that are important. So if you compare to supply economy of scale, demand economies of scale take advantage of technological improvement of the demand side. Demand economies of scales are driven by efficiency in social networks, in demand aggregation, in app development, and other phenomena that make bigger networks more valuable to their users. And we'll come back to that just now. So what is key in a platform? It's that you have two sides. That's also why the most common term is actually two-sided networks. You have two distinct user groups that provide each other with network benefits. So it's straightforward, but that's very important to understand it. So let's take a few examples. Uber, you have the two sides, that's the drivers and the riders. If you take Visa, the credit card, you have the merchant using the machine and the customer having the card. YouTube, you have the one putting the video and the one looking at the video. Airbnb, you have the guests and the renters, and so on and so on. And so you understand here that what will be important is to create a virtuous cycle between the two sides. You cannot have one side that is stronger than the other. And I mean, if you don't have drivers, well, you will not attract riders, right? On the Uber app. If you have not a lot of employees on LinkedIn, well, the employers will not really use it, and so on and so forth. And so that's back to the concept of demand economies of scale that I was just explaining in the previous slide, and that is described on the right side of the slide. And you see the arrow in the middle. What is really efficient and effective in platforms, that's those constant feedback loops. If there is a problem from one side, the other side will adjust, and progressively you will move to a win-win situation for both parties. So what makes a platform attractive? That's the concept of network effect. So you have the definition in the bubble, but very basically it refers to the impact that the number of users of the platform has on the value created for each user. So most of the time, you'll see it's not always the time, but the more user means the more value, and then you will have even more users. So that's you'll see what we call a positive network effect. If you take the very basic example of the telephone, and you'll see a funny strip just after, but if you have one phone and you're the only one with a phone, well, it's totally useless, right? As soon as one other person has a phone, well, that's fine. You can have one interaction with this person. But then with 5 phones, you can have 10 interactions, 12 phones, 66 interaction. If you have understood, obviously, the exponential effect of a platform, and you have the formula, the number of connection in the network, that's n multiplied by n minus 1 divided by 2. That gives you the number of interaction, and you have understood here that the more user means the more value, and it attracts more users. And so that's a classic Dilbert on the first video conference, but I think it's funny indeed. So very important here, you can have same side network effect and cross side network effect. So that's important to define that. So let's start with same side network effect. So that's the network effect created by the impact of user from one side of the market on other user from the same side of the market. Let me explain. Video gamers, and probably Xbox Live, it's not the right example anymore, but if you think about online game, a positive same side network effect is when let me explain it differently, sorry for that. So if you play video game online, the more players you have, the more valuable it is for you, right? Because you have more friends to play with, more interaction possible. So that's a clear example of a same side positive network effect. But you can have it the other way around. That's a negative network effect. And a funny example, obviously, here it's Tinder. So if you're a boy and that you're on Tinder, the more boys join the platform, the less attractive it is for you, right? Because you will have more competition and probably less dating options. So that's a negative same side network effect. So let's keep that in mind. Then you have the cross-site network effect. So that's the opposite. So that's the network effects that are created by the impact of user from one side of the market on user from the other side of the market. And again, you can have positive cross-site network effect and negative cross-site network effect. So if we keep a very easy example to understand, and we keep Tinder. If you're a boy and the number of boys on the platform increase, it's a positive network effect for the other side of the platform who are girls, obviously, because they will have more choices and more dating options. So I know it's at least easy to understand. And then you can have also negative cross-site network effect. Take Facebook, for example. Facebook, they make a lot of money from advertisement. But for user, if you have too much advertisement, that's negative for the other side of the network, who are just the user of Facebook, like you and me. So that's an example of negative cross-site network effect. So I hope it's clear. It's really important. It's really simple, but you need to keep it in mind. And it's mainly important, again, if you run a platform business, if you intend to launch one, to understand those effects, because it's really important. A very famous example is Uber. If you see how network effects work, well, read carefully the slide and look at the illustration. Again, it's simple, but it's a classic example. So Uber really performs a matching service. So it helps riders find drivers and vice versa. So as drivers sign on and coverage density rise within a city, a number of striking growth dynamics are set in motion. The riders will tell their friends about the service. Some even will start driving themselves in their spare time. Wait times will decrease for riders and downtime will decrease for drivers. And so less downtime means that a driver can make the same amount of money even if fares are lower. Because he has more riders during the same number of working hours. So thus less downtime means that the Uber can cut fares and stimulate even more demand, which create a virtuous circle that increase coverage still further. So it shows the value of Uber to each of its participants grows the more people use it. So it really does this virtuous circle. More demand, more drivers, better coverage, less downtime, lower price, more demand, and so on. But also faster pickup, you see. And some of the effects, they compensate each other to keep a good dynamic. Important, in a two-sided network, so in a platform, you usually have one subsidized side. So it means that a group of users when attracted in volume are valued to the other group, and most of the time this group does not pay the full price or is free. So if you enable me to take a basic example again, something we cannot really do for the moment is to go out and go to bar and restaurant, but if you think about a ladies' night, why do a bartender or a disco owner do a ladies' night? So basically where drinks or entry is free for the ladies. Well, because they know that the other side of the market, so the boys will be quite attracted, and that it will bring volume. So one side will not pay, but the other side will pay, even maybe more, and that will in total be more attractive. So you need to be careful, because it really means that the profits to be earned in one side of the market must outweigh the losses incurred in the other side of the market. So here it assumes that the consumption of cocktails by the lady that is free will be offset by the quantities of beers that the men will drink. So very simple, but you see that in a lot of cases. And if you think about Adobe and the PDF, well, you can read PDF for free, but if you want to edit and create PDF, you need to pay for it. But because everybody use it, well, at some point you need to be able to create and to edit PDF as well. So so that's a perfect example of one side that is subsidized there. Multi-homing, single homing, that's an issue. I'll let you read through this. and all this, and the rest we will finish this section here. So we have 15 minutes.